Hey guys, even though we didn't finish chapter 3, I wanted to go ahead and do a week 3 review. So let's go ahead and get started. We started this week talking about the difference between culture and society. And we talked about how these terms are sometimes used interchangeably because you really can't have one without the other. So, just as a quick reminder, culture are the learned and shared beliefs and behaviors that characterize a society. This is the stuff that's passed down through generations, it's constantly changing, and it's shared among the group members within the society. Society itself is the people who share the culture. So that's just a quick review on that. We do within society, we have the material stuff, right? The material culture, which is the physical stuff that helps us kind of quote unquote do society. So this is things like the clothes, books, shoes, homes that we all have. And then we also have the non material culture within a society. And those are the ideas that help us make meaning of the world around us. Next, we talked about the 5 building blocks within society. So, the first thing we discussed were the symbols, the words, gestures, images, physical objects we use to distinguish one culture from another. Then we explored language. This is how we transmit information and teach others how to act and think. We followed that up with discussing a little bit about the values, which help us define what's good, bad, moral or immoral, desirable or undesirable, all within a particular society. We then walked into norms where there started to be a little bit of confusion. So the next slide, we're going to talk about this a bit more. But norms are the specific rules that guide our values. So they're learned with positive sanctions like praise and reward. So when we're little and we're learning how to maybe keep a tidy bedroom, and if we clean our bedroom, then we might get an ice cream sandwich after we're done. Or we can receive negative sanctions when we fail to uphold those norms. And those negative sanctions tend to be things that include the withdrawal of privileges and punishment, right? So if we break curfew, then our parents might take away the car for a week. Some sanctions aren't consistent. We talked a little bit about this. One example that comes to mind is when we sort of slut shame a female for premarital or promiscuous sexual behavior, but we might congratulate a male for his particular conquest. And the next slide, again, we're going to delve more into this and clarify the difference between folkways and mores. Finally, we talked about rituals. And rituals are those repeated behaviors that unite us as a society. This is the stuff that reinforces our values, such as cleanliness, right? We all get up in the morning, we're going to brush our teeth, comb our hair. Failure to engage in some rituals have more serious sanctions or consequences than others. So think about what happens if you don't brush your teeth. People might shy away a little bit throughout the day, but they're not going to really try to throw you in jail for that. Whereas if you do something a little more serious, like not stand for the national anthem, we talked about the consequences that Kaepernick has seen because of his desire to kind of stand against that particular ritual. So that being said, I think that leads us quite nicely into the clarification of folkways and mores. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So just generally speaking, folkways and mores are really just two different types of norms. When we're talking about folkways, we're talking about how to act, right? These are the preferred behaviors, and it certainly falls on a continuum because it's all subjective. But how do we act, for instance, when we're riding an elevator or holding the door for someone? Failure to engage in appropriate behavior may result in some mild negative sanctions, like a dirty look or someone may suck their teeth, but it's not a big deal if a folkway is broken. There's no really moral significance attached to that. So to kind of help clarify maybe some additional examples of folkways are things like we don't let the American flag touch the ground, or you shake hands when you're introduced to someone. When we're standing in line at the movie theater, we're not pushing people while we're waiting. Those are all examples of folkways. Mores, on the other hand, are critical to maintaining the values of a society or of a culture. So we have positive mores like being faithful to a partner, being loyal to our country. But again, this stuff is subjective, right? and it's on a continuum. So additional examples might be how to act in a meeting. You see in the picture here, there's no one standing on the table while they're having their discussion because we just don't do that. And if we were to do it, we might be politely escorted from the meeting room, right? Another example of a moire is public nudity. Again, it's on a continuum. So if you're at a nude beach, there's not necessarily going to be any sanctions, but if you're walking down State Street, you might have to have a conversation with a police officer. Yeah. Um, the very extreme end of a moire, when we're talking about it being on a continuum, is the taboo. So, for instance, for someone who murders or steals, if they break that moire, then there are going to be formal sanctions at play. So I really hope that helped to clarify that a little bit. If not, feel free to email or text me so that I can try to give you some additional information. Otherwise, let's go ahead and wrap up the wrap up. Okay, that's all I've got. So on Tuesday, we're going to wrap up Chapter 3 and we'll move right into Chapter 4. That online content should be available if you want to start studying it early. As a reminder, there will be no quiz due on Tuesday. It'll probably be due on Thursday because we didn't get through all of Chapter 3. And I think I sent an email and a text to people where this applied, but there were some group adjustments that were made, so be sure to check your Eagle group to see if you were affected with those adjustments. Have a great weekend, everyone, and I'll see you on Tuesday.